Welcome to Caregiver Cast with Mary Elaine Petrucci. Are you overwhelmed raising a family, working full-time, caring for a parent or grandparent? It can be challenging when you're doing it alone. Caregiver Cast helps busy, burned-out professionals reduce their stress and overwhelm to create a better caregiving experience for themselves and their loved one. Caregiver Cast brings caregivers together with experts who provide information in a variety of areas. In each episode, you'll get tips on topics such as finance, legal, medical, self-care, community resources, mindset, and more. We're here to make your caregiving journey a more rewarding one. Acquire the confidence and skills to be a more capable caregiver by implementing the resources and strategies from these expert thought leaders. Get a community of support, resources, and strategies for your caregiving journey inside the Caregiver Lifeline community. Visit caregiverlifelinecommunity.com. And now here's your host, Mary Elaine Petrucci.
Welcome to Caregiver Cast. My name is Mary Elaine Petrucci, your host. And my guest today is Barbara Ellison, who will be talking to us about aging gracefully, knowing who you are, which is very exciting. And I love the cat.
I've tried to keep her out, Mary Elaine. It's number one. Thank you for having me. I tried to keep her out, but she knows when I'm on Zoom. So now I've just given up.
I understand. That's no problem. So before I formally introduce Barbara, I'm going to read her bio for you. Barbara Ellison is a speaker, author, show host, certified personality trainer, certified dream coach, and transformational life trainer, specializing in how to age gracefully. After the death of her husband, when she realized she needed to get in touch with who she was to go on with her life, she also realized she needed help to do it. She hired a life coach and then knew that was what she was meant to be also. To work with others who were going through the same challenges that she had faced. So she became a transformational life trainer. When asked why, her response is always, I just want people to be happy, which is a great reason. Barbara is on a mission to make happiness the norm rather than the exception by inspiring the world to live happy, healthy, financially free, abundant lives. Wow. She works with midlife men and women who optimize their mental, physical, and financial fitness so that the rest of their life is the best of their life. She is committed to working with those men and women who are coming up to retirement and who have no idea who they are outside of their job title. They want to discover their purpose, their passion, or their drive to take them into an active, healthy, and abundant retirement. Welcome, Barbara, to Caregiver Cast.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, Mary Elaine. How are you doing today?
I am doing well, thank you.
Cool.
Can we also introduce your cat?
This is Tripod.
Tripod.
This is Tripod. Yeah.
Hi, Tripod.
As I said, yeah. And her name is Tripod because when we got her, two of my grandkids at the time were they worked for the Humane Society. And
Okay.
she came to us with a broken leg, and then they couldn't save her leg, so they had to amputate it. So that's why her name is Tripod. She's only got 3 legs.
Well, thank you so much for taking care of Tripod.
Yes,
she looks like she's loved.
Yeah, because she'll just come and bat at me. So now I was like, okay, life happens, and it actually, she has become part of things that I do with people because you know what? Life happens.
Yes, it does. Sometimes more than we really wanted or expected. Yes.
More than we want to or that we expect to. But it's not that what happens to us, it's how we handle what happens to us. And so like with me, she jumps up on me now and I'm like, oh, well, and we just laugh And yeah, see, now she'll walk off. And and that's the thing, it's how you handle it.
Well, exactly. I mean, I was staying with a couple once, and I was writing my thesis,
Mm,
my master's thesis, and their
yeah,
cat just batted away all of
yeah,
my papers. It was like, okay, Mary Elaine,
yeah,
you gotta pay attention to me.
right,
And she just plopped in my lap, and I'm like,
yeah,
okay, well, I guess I need to direct my attention
right.
to what's
And
going on.
and it just causes you to stop and go, oh, well, okay, maybe I just need to be, either just get out of taking a break, because I know for myself, one of the things that I find so often is that people don't take little fitness breaks, mental, physical.
Oh,
um and especially as we age, and I'm guilty of it myself,
mm,
that I'll sit down and then 3 hours later I haven't moved for 3 hours. So now one of the things that I really focus on for my seniors is that, okay, if you're going to sit down and watch TV, great, do it, we all do it, but at the commercials, get up. And
mm,
I don't care, and you don't have to get up and do anything, but just stand up,
mm,
do a stretch, sit back down again.
mhm,
Because when you are, because inertia sets in. And so when you sit for extended periods of time, it slows down over time. And so that's what happens to people when
mm,
they sit down and don't get up. Like now, when I'm at home and working,
mhm,
I set a timer for 45 minutes, for 30 to 45 minutes, to make sure that I stand up. Because and surprisingly, what happens so often to, especially to seniors, is that, well, it hasn't been 30 minutes. Oh, yeah, I guess it has been 30 minutes because my timer's going off.
right. And not only that, sometimes you stand up and you're going, I need to learn how to walk all over again.
Right. It's like you can't take that first step.
Right.
And I have to say that I'm guilty of it. Like, one of the things people say, well, oh, what do you teach? Well, all the things that I have to deal with and learn. And that's what I teach, because that's something that, as we age, I mean,
Mm-hmm.
a 20-year-old, I could just jump up.
Right.
But then it just got to the point where it's like, okay, fine, I have to be a little bit more proactive
Mhm.
of what I'm doing. And we are responsible for our own health and well-being.
That's a great point. We are, and we don't
We
take
are
good
responsible.
care of it.
And
Mm,
so many people, and I'm not knocking doctors, absolutely, but people have, in many ways, have given over their health and well-being to the doctors.
right. But however, by
However,
doing that, they're really not taking care of what they're eating, or
right,
what they're exercising,
yeah,
or whatever it may be,
yeah,
because
yeah,
and then something happens, and then they never
right,
blame themselves for
right,
not
right.
getting up and exercising or eating it properly.
And, and even if that's something simple of standing up at the commercials,
Mm,
stand up at the commercials. If you're watching TV, fine, great, do it.
mm-hmm.
But stand up at the commercials.
Yes, ma'am.
You don't have to go anywhere, but just make sure you stand up.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to tell on myself. One of the things that I do when I've been working, if I've been, doing, caught up in a project or doing something, I will stand up, but I'll do the twist.
Wow, that's
Just
exciting.
and even if I set a time, like I'll set a timer for, hey, set a timer for 2 minutes and
Mhm.
just stand there and do the twist. And you don't, and if for some reason that you are not able to stand up, I mean, there are people that are, wheelchair bound or whatever, it doesn't mean that you don't do it.
Exactly.
You
That's
still do it. However, you're doing it in your chair.
wow. I like that exercise.
Feel, how does it feel? And just move your arms across your body at like shoulder level.
Mm,
And if you can't do it at shoulder level, do it at the bottom.
mm.
It's just that movement. And you can just drop your head slightly and turn to the side and back and turn to the side for as long as what the commercial is on.
It's not that long.
Oh, most commercials are 2 minutes and 20 seconds.
Thank you for timing that for us.
That's about what they are. The commercial break is usually about 2 minutes and 20 seconds. So in that 2 minutes and 20 seconds, do something.
Mhm.
Even if you're just this, it doesn't matter what it is. It's just movement. And then do both your shoulders and push them down. And both your shoulders and push them down. It is so important as you age. And especially for the caregivers.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Because guess what it does? It helps you to reduce stress.
Mm-hmm.
And
You're
I took care of my husband for 2 years before he passed away. And that was one of the hardest things. Barbara, yes, you are taking care of David.
Mm-hmm.
However, you are responsible for you.
That is so true. Mm-hmm.
You're responsible for you. David is not going to exercise for you. Nobody else is going to exercise for you. Nobody else is going to make you move. You have to do it. Make sure that you do it. And
Yeah.
it's that simple. People always think that and one of the things, and I will share this with you.
Mm-hmm.
Take the word exercise out of your vocabulary. You do not exercise. You have movement.
Oh, that's even better. I like
Such a huge distinction.
Mm-hmm.
Take the word exercise. Exercise, yes, when you're young, exercise is good. Going to the gym is good. Absolutely. We don't need to exercise. It's good to exercise. And if you're still capable of exercising, great, do it.
Mm-hmm.
I do walk at home. Like I'm just walking in place.
Mm-hmm.
Little movements. But is that. And lots of times I find it's the mindset.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
I'm 72. I have to move. Because if I don't move, well, our joints, it's kind of like having a rusted joint. If you don't use something, it's going to rust. Well, guess what? Our joints rust internally. And that's why it's so important to move. And so, but once in a while, it's just, well, I'll hear people say, well, I can't exercise. Okay, don't. And then they look at me, but make sure you move. Stand up at the commercials.
Mm-hmm.
Do this in your chair. One of the things you can't really see it because my feet, but put your feet on the floor. And especially if you're in a wheelchair, put your feet on the floor and lift your toes. Okay, so now lift your heels so that you're rocking back and forth. So lift your toes, lift your heels, lift your toes, lift your heels, lift your toes, lift your heels. So now where are you feeling that? You're feeling that in your legs, in your trunk. But when you keep doing it for 2 minutes, you'll start to feel it up here.
There. Wow. Okay.
Because it's movement.
Yes, I like the idea of going from exercise to movement. Thank you for that, Barbara. I appreciate that.
You're welcome. And I find once people get to that, oh, I don't have to exercise? No, but you must have movement. It's a must.
Yeah.
And stand up at the commercials if you can stand up. And if you can't stand up at the commercials, rock your feet, lift your toes, lift your heel, lift your toes. And then if you really are adventurous, lift your whole knee up. Just lift your knee, even just an inch. Lift your knee and put your foot back down on the floor. Lift your knee, put it back down on the floor. So easy to do. So don't, because my dad was in a wheelchair for many years. And not because he couldn't walk, but because he was a fall risk. He would fall over. So that's what we ended up doing with him. And so he learned all of these exercises, the movements to do within his chair.
That's a great idea.
But I have to tell you, sometimes when I'm really busy, I find myself, I do it. I'll rock on I'll be working, and I'll find it's like, oh yeah, I'm doing it because I do it. And it has to get to the point where you do it without thinking about it.
Yes. Yes.
So you're just sitting and you're rocking, like right now, I mean, and nobody can tell you're doing it. You're just rocking you're rocking your feet. Lift your toes, lift your heels, lift your toes, lift your heels.
Yeah, you really can't tell.
You can't tell you're doing it, and it's moving, and it's getting the juices flowing throughout your body. And it's good for your heart. Anytime you move, it's good for your heart.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. So that's my lecture of the day to your audience. Sure.
Well, okay. So you mentioned you were taking care of David. Is that when you got started on your journey to do this transformation? I know, first of all, I want to thank you for taking care of David, because
he was my sweetie.
I bet.
He was my sweetie. And when he passed away, though, I went into the total widow's fog. And I sort of remember the first year after he passed away, but telling myself a funny thing. I remember the only thing I really totally remember doing. I know I worked, and I went, places, and I, did things. But the only thing I really remember was binge watching all 10 years of Frasier on Netflix.
Oh my gosh.
I remember doing that. The funny part is that Frasier is still on. In fact, they're going to reprise his role. I just heard that the other day. They're going to.
Oh my goodness, they are.
Kelsey Grammer has Frasier. I don't know when it's going to be out, but anyways, but it's still on. You can still watch. It's on a couple of the really off TV places, networks. But every once in a while, I'll catch an episode of Frasier, and I'll be. I know that I binged watched all 10 years, but I don't really remember that episode.
Oh,
because that's the widow's fog. And I truly believe that caregivers themselves can go into that fog because they're so stressed. They're so concentrating on the person that they are, especially if it's a loved one, that they are so focused on what's for the loved one. Right. They're forgetting about themselves.
Right. And that seems to be the biggest issue with caregivers is self-care. Because if they feel like if they do it, that they're
being selfish.
Yes, selfish and guilty. Yep. There you go.
The thing that I always tell people is that if you're on an airplane, what's the first thing they tell you in the event of an emergency? Put on your oxygen mask first before you try to help someone else.
Correct.
That's where self-care comes in. You cannot ever give to someone else what you don't have yourself.
That's a very great point. You're right. I mean, because, even when I was going through it, it's
so important.
Yes.
And yet I have to admit, getting over the feeling of guilt. I remember the first time that I left my husband with, we asked a friend, because I was getting to the point where I couldn't handle David because it wasn't that he was a really big man, but he still had some weight on him. And as he lost mobility, it was like, oh yeah, okay, fine. Yeah, I need some help. I couldn't get him up by myself. So we got a friend of ours, he said, well, Barbara, I'll come and help you. And I went, oh, thank you. So his name was Lonnie. And so Lonnie would come, but the first time that I left David with just Lonnie and went out for dinner with friends, I felt so guilty. How can I'm, all the thoughts go through your head of that, I'm leaving my husband or whoever your loved one is. In my case, it was like, I'm leaving David with somebody else. Really, you're doing it. You're really going to do this. And as I was walking out the door, it's like, okay, yes, Barbara, come on, you can do it because you have to take, and that was what went through my head. Barbara, you have to take care of you.
Exactly.
If you get sick, if something happens to you because of the stress of taking care of it, taking care of David, doing everything, because I became the breadwinner, the whole 9 yards. If you don't take care of you, if something happens to you, oh, where's David going to be?
In a lot of trouble.
In a lot of trouble.
Yes.
So that's why I just really, really stress to people, take care of you. It is self-care is not selfish.
Thank you for saying that. That's what I've been attempting to tell my caregivers, and it's
self-care is not selfish.
Great.
Right. Absolutely. And there's little bits of everything. You can do self-care while you're still doing the caregiving activities. Absolutely. It's like if you're watching TV with the person, like stand up at the commercials.
Exactly. There you go.
And have the person movement. I don't care what condition you're in. You can just even if you're moving your hands, it's just moving parts of your body. Just turn your head. Even if you can only do it slightly, it's when you are totally inactive that more things go wrong.
Yeah, that's a really great point. Yes, that is true. That is true.
So
what do you think is the most important aspect dealing with when you were a caregiver?
I think just taking care of yourself. And not giving over to despair. If you are dealing with something, if you yourself are having an issue with something, make sure you tell somebody else. Because you know what? It is you need support.
Oh, definitely.
And number one, there are no silly situations. Well, I can't believe I can't handle this. No. And because if you can't handle it right then, all it does is add more stress to you, and it becomes a never-ending cycle of stress.
Yes.
And then you fall into, as my girlfriend says, then you start spiraling down. And every time you don't admit it, you don't deal with it, you're going further and further down.
Exactly.
Well,
yeah.
What does that do to you as the caregiver?
It just makes you incapable of taking care of someone else.
Taking care of somebody else.
Yes.
Right. And it's I think that is just the biggest one. And you know what? And you're going to feel the guilt. Feel the guilt and do it anyways.
Great advice. So in addition to taking care of yourself and do it anyway, even if you feel guilty, are there any other tips that you recommend that people should do about caregiving?
I think just those are the main basic ones. But you know, like, what do you enjoy doing? Do not give up the things that you enjoy doing. So often what happens, and I was guilty of this, but then I got wise. Had to, because friends of mine called me on the carpet. Barb, you're not doing. Barb, you're not doing. Oh, because I was everything was consumed with taking care of David. What did David need? Everything was about David.
Mm-hmm.
Where's Barbara in that? That is such a big thing.
Mm-hmm.
You have to keep, and that comes under self-care, and yet it's not. It's being aware of keeping you.
Yeah.
Don't give up you.
See, that's a really good point, Barbara, because my mother informed me she had taken care of her mother, and she said that it took her a year to come out of, I guess, that fog that you were talking about before she could even think about doing things that she enjoyed doing, because she had nothing else to give. Yeah,
it had consumed her.
Yes.
And it's easier said than done. But the thing is, though, I think if you can be aware, just try to do, like, I call it like a self check-in.
Okay, I like that.
Do a self check-in. Okay, so before I started on this journey of being a caregiver, what were the things that I was doing that I enjoyed doing? Am I still, and that's where the self checkup comes in. Okay, am I still doing it? Yes or no?
No.
And you'll be surprised how many people will say, oh yeah, before I was taking care of my parents, I used to do that. I used to do this. Oh yeah, because you forget.
Yes.
Because you become consumed with the caregiver role.
Yes, you do.
And and that's one of the and that's part of, like, I work with people who are coming up to retirement. You might not be a caregiver, but you might be coming up to retirement age. Well, who are you? Who are you within you outside of your title?
Wow, that's a big one.
And you would be amazed at how many people go, well, I'm a department manager, especially men. Oh, I'm a department manager. Oh, I'm a CEO. I'm a chief financial officer. They're really caught up in their letters after their names. Okay, yeah, but who are you?
Great point. Bet they don't know.
And they don't know.
Wow.
And that's what happened to me. After David died and I woke up from my widow's fog, I went, okay, Barbara, now what? And I had no idea. And that was the scariest moment. I said, oh, brother, what am I going to do? I'm 61 years old. My father lived to be 102. My mom was 94 when she passed away. So I've got Barbara. So this is everything that's going through my brain. Okay, I'm 61. I've chatted I really, in reality, I probably have a good 30 years. And this is what happens when people come up to retirement. Okay, I have 30 more years. What am I going to do?
Right.
Well, unfortunately, what's happening to so many people, caregivers and people coming up to retirement, they're taking care of their loved one, and as soon as that role ends, they're gone. They pass away from themselves when they could turn it around and be an active part of society. But we have to get in touch with who we are. What can be your purpose? So one of the things that I work with is that, okay, if you were not doing what you're doing, what would you like to do? One thing. What would you like to do? One of my clients a couple of years ago, he was in financial services, coming up to retirement age. And I said, so if you weren't doing financial services, what would you like to be doing? No clue. He was like absolutely silent. But then I started to hear, because we know what was one thing that you wanted to do as a kid.
Mm-hmm.
And he said he finally, and it was several, it was like a minute or so, which when you're silent seems like forever.
Yes.
So if you can do this for yourself, if you're listening to this and you're do this for yourself. If I wasn't doing what I'm doing, what would I like to be doing? And get quiet. Sit quietly and see what answer comes up.
Mm.
And when he did that, he went, oh, he said, well, maybe I would like to do that. And I said, great, great, perfect. So now we're going to talk again in 2 weeks. What can you do? One thing that you can do in the next 2 weeks that is going to move you towards that, what he told me. One thing, one small step, one step. What can you do? He went, well, I guess I could do this. Great. Then that's what I expect to hear about in 2 weeks. Oh, Mary Elaine, 2 weeks later, it was like he was a changed man.
Are you serious? Oh my gosh.
Because when I gave, it was like he had permission to dream again.
Oh.
From something that he had thought about doing way back years when he was a teenager. And now it was like I had given him permission, and that by asking him what was that one step that he could do, that one step led to the next step, and then 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 the next step. So by 2 weeks, it was like he was on fire.
Wow.
And I said to him, I said, so what does your wife think of this? And he looked, and then I could hear it. We were on the phone, and I could hear it. He said, it has changed our marriage. Because he was getting in touch with what was making him happy. And by him getting in touch with what was making him happy, it went over into making her saying, well, gee, well, if he's going to be happy, then I can be happy. He said, it has changed my relationship with my wife. And the same can happen with you and the loved one that you're taking care of as a caregiver.
Wow, that is really powerful story, Barbara. I mean, wow.
And it's absolutely, and we are, every one of us are capable of doing that. And that's exactly what happened to me. I said, all right, what am I going to do? And so number one, so I took a class on, it was called The Ultimate Game of Life.
Oh.
And then I went to one of their events, and it was like, oh, this is what I want to do. There are people out there that are struggling with how I was. And now I want to help them. And that started the journey. And now I love it. And it's the most fun thing when I see or hear the light bulb go on.
Oh, yes. I think that would be incredible.
It's, oh, wow, I can do this. I can do that. And it's like they get their life back. They get, well, not even that they get their life back, but they get control back.
Yeah. Oh, that's even better. Yes.
They get control of their life rather than the title controlling them. If it's a caregiver or it's a corporate title, or it's, it doesn't matter what the title is. It could be being a father. It can be, and not only the father, but being the provider.
Oh, yes.
So yes, men want to provide for their family, but it doesn't mean it can't be doing something that they love, that makes them happy. Because when they are happy, you are going to be a happier husband. You're going to be a happier father. You're going to be a happier child. You're going to be a happier son, whatever that is.
Mm.
But who are you? What are you doing to make you happy within you?
Wow. So this is what it means to be a dream coach and
A dream coach.
transformational life trainer.
Yes. Let's transform your life. Because if you're not living your life, the life that you are meant to live from the inside, and so I find this lots of times, is that people come into their jobs
Mm-hmm.
because it's what they were expected to do. Not that they wanted to do, but they were expected to do, especially like if it's a family business.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's huge.
Mm.
That's huge. Well, how did you become, like, and that's one of the questions that I asked. So how did you get started with doing what you're doing? Well, it was my family business. So if you weren't doing this, what would you be doing?
Mm. Right.
And that question so often will stump them. And that was part of me. It was like, okay, so if you're not doing what you're doing, what would you be doing? And it was like, I had no clue, but I knew I had to find out. So that's when I hired a coach. So I hired somebody like me
Mm-hmm.
to help me get to, oh, wow, this is what I want to do. And now I love the fact that I'm a transformational life trainer. And if you feel that your life needs a little transforming or a huge transforming, hey, let's work on it. Let's see where you go.
Oh, yeah. I think it would be wonderful. So, give us 3 takeaways, Barbara, about how to age gracefully.
The biggest thing is find out who you are.
Excellent. Yes.
And you can, and it's actually fairly simple. We have within us what we're supposed to be doing.
Yes.
Sit back and find out.
Mm.
Get quiet. And the biggest thing is, do not be afraid of getting quiet.
Mm.
Just get quiet. Take some breaths.
Mm-hmm.
Breath is your biggest thing. Get quiet.
Right.
If you want to put on a bit of relaxing music, YouTube is your best friend.
Okay. Thank you.
I love YouTube, because you can go on there and you can look for meditation for purpose, meditation to put in whatever, meditation to relieve stress, meditation to get in touch with your inner child. There's
Right.
whatever it is that you're looking for,
Mm-hmm.
put it, and then take the time to do it.
Okay.
And the biggest thing, do it more than once.
Yeah.
Biggest thing, do it more than once.
I'm not doing that, but okay. Yes.
Do it more than once. Make movement part of your day.
Mm.
That is so important. I can't stress that enough. Make movement part of your day.
Okay.
And then one of the number 3, and sometimes I think this is the biggest thing, but it is number 3, is quit beating yourself up for the things that you are not.
Whoa.
Celebrate the things that you are.
Mm.
That's huge.
Yes, that is very huge.
That's huge.
Yes, ma'am. Wow. Just be who you are.
Quit beating yourself up for what you're not. Celebrate the things that you are.
Awesome. Wow. That is such an amazing takeaway. Thank you. So, Barb, you have been really giving us immense golden nuggets during our conversation together. And I thoroughly have enjoyed it. So can you tell us what your free offer is for the listeners?
One of the things, knowing who you are.
Right.
One of the things that I have, it's a free personality quiz. It'll take you less than 90 seconds. It'll take you a minute, because what you're going to do is, and I've given Mary Elaine the link. You can just go on to it, and what you're going to do is you're going to see 4 cards, and they're different colors.
Okay.
So what you're going to do is you are going to read what's on each one of the cards. And then you're going to pick the order that is the most like you to the least like you. And you're going to put them in order. And they'll either be top to, depending on your device, it'll either be top to bottom or left to right.
Okay.
So just put them in order, that to the one that's most like you, to the one that's the least like you. Some of them, if you're not quite sure, oh, well, then just pick. I mean, but usually you'll have a dominant first one and you'll have a dominant last one.
Okay.
One's in the middle, yeah, you can kind of be iffy, but you are all part of all 4 of them. So that's why you resonate with some of the cards more than what you will at the last. Then once you do that, you'll submit them, and then you'll get a report. And you're going to be able to, and that was when I started to know who I was, when I started with that.
Okay.
Because as I was reading my report, I went, oh, Barbara, that's why you do that. Oh. And when you're with somebody else, oh, that's why we get along. Because you're like, especially if you have them do it too, and it's free. Anybody can do it. So if you want to have other people do it, that's fine. If you're listening to this, they just have to put in their own email, so that their own separate email, so they'll get their own report.
Right.
But then compare the reports. And it's just so fun when I have a couple that do it. Oh, that's why we get along there. Oh, that's why. That's why we don't get along there.
Oh,
it is fascinating.
Mm.
And when you read it for yourself, that's where you'll say, oh, that's why I'm good at that. Ooh, that's why I'm not quite so good at that. But it gives you a place to start, and then quit, then celebrate the things that you're good at.
Yeah. And
give
forget
yourself
about the
grace
ones
for
like-
the things that you're not.
Thank you.
Quit trying to be somebody else.
I
It's
know.
the biggest thing. Quit trying to be somebody else.
That's a really good point. I mean, after my brother died, I tried to be like him.
Right.
I was cognizant of the fact that I couldn't be. So I,
Mhm.
and with my peers would say, Mary Elaine, you don't have to do this all the time. You don't have to pay for everything all the time.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I got to the point pretty quickly
Mhm.
that I had to leave my own life, and I
Right.
couldn't live my brother's because he was totally different than I was.
Exactly.
Who am I trying to fool here? I can't be like him.
Right. Because you're not him. He was different.
Exactly.
Your divine gifts were given to you.
Mm-hmm.
They weren't given, your brother's gifts were given to him. They
Mm-hmm.
weren't given to you. You have your own divine gifts.
Mm-hmm.
So
Thank you.
celebrate those divine gifts that you're given. And don't worry, and if you want to improve some of the other, like right now, I'm going to tell on myself. Have we got time?
Yes, we do.
I am not I have not, in the past, I have not been the most technology person.
Mm.
But it was something that I really wanted to get a little bit better at.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that's okay, fine. And I'm slowly learning how to get a little bit more technology proficient.
Okay, that sounds perfect.
And so that's fine.
Yes.
But I've quit beating myself up. And I'll give you an example. Last week, I was trying to do something.
Mm-hmm.
It was on a technology type of thing. And I was like, just getting so frustrated with myself. And then beating myself up.
Which is not what
What's wrong with me that I can't do this?
Right.
And as I sat there and in total frustration, it came to me, well, because you're not supposed to be doing it.
No, you should be hiring somebody to do it.
Hire somebody else to do it for you.
Yeah.
And I went and was like, oh, brother, Barbara, here's me. This is what I teach.
Mm-hmm.
Well, guess what? I teach the things that I have to learn myself sometimes. And it's like, okay.
Oh my goodness. That's a great example. If you need
That's
some help with technology, I have a few people to help you out. Totally
yeah.
get that. I'm not, technology is not my forte.
It's not my forte.
Right. And that's okay.
And thank you. That's exactly what I want people to get to. That's okay.
Right.
You don't have to be someone else.
Thank you.
Be
Thank
you.
Barbara. Yes. Great advice. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
This has been so enlightening. And I know that the listeners have gotten so much enriched, enlightening information from you, Barb. So thank you so much for being on
Oh,
and
thanks
sharing
again for
your
having me.
gift. And
Yes.
I'm going to let everybody know to take advantage of
Yeah.
the free offer that Barbara offers you. And how can they get in touch with you, Barbara, if they really need to get moving?
Okay. Number one, you can get into my go onto my Aging Gracefully page. We just there's products there for you to look at. There's a way for that you can talk to me directly. On like partway down the page, there's a couple of videos for you to look at, and if it's something you're interested in, great. If not, that's okay too. But there is a place for you that you can get in touch with me, and you can just connect and have a caring conversation with me, and it's a freebie. And then we can just see if I can help you further, or if I can't, I will recommend somebody else to help, because we can't please everybody, we can't help everybody, but
Right.
let's have a conversation, because I might be able to give you a place to get started.
Yes.
And sometimes that is the biggest hurdle.
Yes.
Getting started. So you can just reach out to me, and the link is it's a bit.ly link. So it's https and then the bit.ly bit.ly/life training today.
Life training today.
Life
Awesome.
training today. It's a bit.ly link, and you can go on to that and reach out to me.
Well, thank you so much, Barb.
Or
I
people
really
can,
appreciate this.
oh, you're very welcome. Very welcome. I love talking about it. It's such a essential subject.
Yes.
Is that getting to know who you are
It's so important.
outside of being the caregiver or being the CEO or being whatever it is that, outside of that, who are you?
Yes.
Because that will it will impact every other area of your life.
Definitely. Wow. Okay. I'm just going to recommend everybody just sit down, think quietly, and just take your first step.
Take your first step, because that one step will lead to something else. And I call them inspired actions. And just having little instant you'll have like a download.
I love download.
That's what I can do. And that one thing will lead to something else and lead to something else. And it's just so essential, so important. So yeah, that's my
totally
biggest.
Agree with you. Thank you so much, Barbara.
You're very welcome. Loved it. This was fun.
I thoroughly enjoyed it myself. So thank you for being on.
You're welcome.
Thank you for listening to the Caregiver Cast today. Get a community of support, resources, and strategies for your caregiving journey inside the Caregiver Lifeline community. Visit caregiverlifelinecommunity.com. Get involved with the show. Send your email to mpetrusi2002@gmail.com. And we'll see you again next week for another episode of Caregiver Cast.